Welcome to the Project with Sam and Lewis, the podcast that looks at projects throughout pop culture and history. I'm Sam.
And I'm Lewis.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the fourth episode of the Lazarus Project.
We certainly are, in our normal voices.
Yes, after this intro, we'll talk much more normally.
We shall. So we are now halfway through that particular series.
We are. You can't manage yourself to say it then.
Lazarus? That's how we say it, isn't
the Lazarus Project. It's quite hot in here, so that's the disclaimer.
I've just found out that Suva's a relaxative.
Lewis went, that explains it. But if you do want to skip ahead, we have time codes in the episode description. In personal projects, I will be talking about the new Predator installment, Prey.
Nice.
Lewis, what were you talking about?
Some little small series you might have seen called Fleabag.
Oh, lovely. Pick it up off my recommendations again. There we go. But so you can skip ahead to those. But we have plenty of lovely content for you before then.
We do.
But before we get to that, how are you, Lewis?
Yeah, all right. It's been like...
Shit in your pants.
No, I have not shat in my pants. Obviously, we had a big weekend in Edinburgh, as we mentioned last week on the pod.
Did.
And then I've come back to a really busy week at work where I've had loads to do and an inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a bit crazy and I've not quite been ready for any of it.
No, it was straight kind of from the weekend into work in lots of ways, wasn't it? We got back super late and didn't really have time to recover very much. Did we? But good weekend overall.
Yes,
my
enjoyed it.
My first stag do, baby's first stag.
Not my first, but my first time in Edinburgh, which is a beautiful city.
It was beautiful. We were there during the festival, which is still going on at time of recording, in its second week, I think now. We caught some shows, which was good fun. Maybe talk about it at the end if we run out of stuff to talk about.
About the fun highlight of Sam ordering food to the wrong McDonald's.
Yeah, it was good fun. Classic tourist mistake. Also, there was two McDonald's within like 100 meters of each other.
But one was in the station.
And one was hidden, and it took me almost an hour to find it. There you go, there's the story. But we have a segment, don't we, Lewis?
We do have a tiny little segment.
A segment.
Project news
with a tiny little jingle.
I told you it was a tiny little segment. So I really struggled to find project news this week, and did my typical then look at Project NME, Project Kerrang, Project BBC, and couldn't find anything. So I just picked two things that I wanted to talk about and put project in there, and then waited to find a headline with project in the title.
You just got a headline and just added project into it yourself.
But one wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but it's worth talking about.
Yeah.
So this is from Game Rant.
Ooh. Oh, those bloody games.
Yep.
Is it people who really hate games then?
No, I think they really love games.
They're like ranting about them.
Based on what this article's about.
Okay.
Little teaser for what I'm just about to tell you.
Okay. So about games, is it?
The Lord of the Rings Dungeons and Dragons project belongs to a promising trend.
Okay.
So they're bringing out a new set of Dungeons and Dragons stuff, as they often do.
Yeah.
And they're doing a Lord of the Rings version of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Which I think people have been doing that kind of thing for years, like themselves.
Yeah, of course.
But making like an official one.
I mean, it's kind of the world. It's very inspired by Lord of the Rings, anyway, isn't it? So it's kind of coming back on that. Yeah.
But I think this is such a fantastic idea to get people in, because Dungeons and Dragons seems so daunting.
It does, yeah. To the point where I've got a set down there that I was looking at that I opened and have never played. We played similar games like Shiver. We've played a couple of rounds of, but the actual thing, it feels very technical, and I don't think it's as bad as it sounds.
No, so things like having a Lord of the Rings version will really get people, because they'll recognise the setting, the cast,
the creatures, the characters, all that sort of thing. Make
it a bit less daunting, and then you're just playing a Lord of the Rings game.
Yes, yeah. I'm assuming it's licensing that stopped this in the past, because it seems like the kind of thing that should have happened a long time ago, or at least in the last 20 years since the films came out.
Yeah, I don't think it's any coincidence that
the Amazon series is coming out.
Yes,
is that
it's called The Rings of Power.
The Rings of Power, yes.
Yeah. But this article's talking about how like there's becoming a lot of like there's a trend of pop culture things going into classic board games.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's like Monopoly. There's Cluedo. They've always had themed versions of them, haven't they?
I think there's a Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Role-playing game. Yeah, I followed it on Kickstarter. It seemed quite interesting. I don't know if it was officially based on Dungeons and Dragons or anything, but yeah, it was that kind of thing. Yeah,
they're speculating that in the future we could have like Zelda D&D or MCU D&D.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Lord of the Rings seems like the obvious first choice
because it's not too far removed, is it? Yeah.
And it's such a huge like pop culture phenomenon.
I don't know. I don't know if there's I don't know enough about D&D to know if you can have like sci-fi stuff in it. I assume you can because you can just make it kind of however you want.
Yeah.
Or like semi like cyberpunk in a fantasy world.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I reckon there's probably some like D&D purists that say no.
Yeah, because the one that we played, Shiver, was pretty much like it was horror movie based, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But that's quite broad and broader than Dungeons and Dragons on the out.
I think Dungeons and Dragons is fundamentally based in like fantasy.
Yeah, hence the name, I suppose.
Yeah. And you have like the classes and stuff that are fantasy built.
Yeah.
But yeah, that could be fun and, maybe a good way to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I'd agree, yeah.
And then this other article is from Clutch Points.
I've no idea what that is, so I'm not going to try and think of a funny comeback to that.
So it is...
Is it about purses?
No.
Continue. Spiky purses. There you go.
In preparation for the House of the Dragon...
Ooh.
Every spin-off project Game of Thrones fans need to know more about.
Okay, so potential upcoming
series that there has been rumors or they've talked about potentially
Is
doing.
it like Egg and John or whatever it's called?
Duncan Egg. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to House of the Dragons.
Yes.
It looks good.
I've heard the reactions are good.
Yeah.
Which is good.
And I think also what's interesting with that compared to Game of Thrones is they got to a point where they finished the books and carried on. Whereas because this is a historical event from that point of view, we know what happened.
That's it.
We know all the characters, so there's only so far off kilter they can go.
Yeah, and I guess if it's kind of like a historical, like if the way it's written is in a historical way, they've got a bit of leniency with the specifics. We know the kind of main points it's going to hit.
Yeah.
But even those could be like murkied by history.
So it's, I don't know how familiar you are with the setup, but it's from the book Fire and Blood,
right?
Which is like a history of the Targaryen.
That was like an in-universe style, but
it's written by the Maesters. I've got it, and it has points where like they wrote a bit, and then there's like an asterisk, and at the bottom be like, actually things happen slightly different.
Right.
Here. So it's all like
up for
contemporary historians of the time.
Yeah,
so it is kind of, they could interpret in different ways, which could be really fun of being like, which side does the show writers side with?
That's true. Yeah.
Because it's a civil war.
Yeah, and there's an element where, with historical things now, like The Crown and things like that, they take liberties with the character relationships and things like that. All the stuff that historians wouldn't know behind the scenes is completely up to the showrunners to do with what they will.
Yeah. So they've got some other suggestions here, which I think would be fine.
I think there was one that was potentially announced.
The Roberts Rebellion would be a good one to do.
The only issue with that is that we did see those flashbacks, and then it's recut because you probably don't get that guy who looked like Sean Bean a little bit for a whole series. I don't imagine they'd get him. There was an article, I've got it here actually. I was going to pretend that I knew it, but from the 14th of July, apparently Kit Harington is expected to come back for a Beyond the Wall series.
Yeah, they mentioned a Jon Snow spin-off.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure how I feel about.
I think that if they do that, it will devolve into like, at the end of the season, he comes back and look, someone else is there, Bran's there, and it's like it would just end up being a Game of Thrones sequel, but without the branding. And that is a clever way to do it because you can't call it Game of Thrones 2.
Yeah, I just prefer them to obviously. They could also do Aegon's Conquest.
Right.
When the Targaryens first came to Westeros.
So that's what, a couple hundred years before
300 years before Game of Thrones.
So what, like 200 before? When's this one? 100 or so years?
Set in 129 AC, so 170 years before Game of Thrones, roughly.
Right, so smack bang in the middle almost between the two.
So it spreads it out enough.
That's good, yeah. So it's
that they could do that
so
as well.
There shouldn't be anyone that's alive in this. Nobody's that old, are they? No. Okay, but you get like great granddads of people and stuff like that, wouldn't you?
The granddad, someone in this is the granddad of Maester Aemon,
right?
Game of Thrones,
and he's the old guy.
He's the really old man on the wall. So his granddad. It will be a young person in this,
and we'll get different houses that we recognise.
Like
but some houses are newer as well. Is that right? Like, so some would have been formed in the time between this and
exactly, and some houses would have risen and fallen.
Yes,
obviously seeing like the Targaryens at their peak and not just as a single girl across.
It's going to be an expensive dragon budget, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
And Matt Smith's in it as well.
Matt Smith as Daemon Targaryen, who is an interesting character, and I'm looking forward to his portrayal.
Okay. Any hints there at all?
He does some bad shit.
Okay.
But you're also kind of on his side. Well, I'm kind of on his side. He does some bad
shit. We'll come back to that soundbite there when he does some awful stuff to children and or his family.
Sure. Because like it's I think it's set in the build up to the Dance of Dragons.
Right, okay.
But
what was that big like disco they did at the end?
Yes. Big disco. No, that's the Targaryen Civil War.
Right.
So
Targaryen Civil War, right? I didn't know that.
So I think this will be like the build up to that rather than and then maybe another next season will go into
the
Civil
I'm
War.
sure they won't go straight in. Yeah. I mean, even the first Game of Thrones series, I know it's following the first book pretty like it's kind of like there's not masses going like not everyone's at war in the same way as they are later on. It's a slow build up to it's more the politics and the intrigue leading to the war. So I'm sure they would
and it will have
try and do something
different
similar.
alliances and things like that.
Although one thing they might try and do is do what they did in the later seasons and speed things up a little bit because they might not they'll probably wait until the end of this season, like you say, to do the war. But then they might kind of move things along as you go. I don't know the story at all. So
potentially. And because it's history, they can.
It's coming out soon, isn't it?
Yeah,
like next week or something.
On the 21st, I think. But
cool.
I was talking about this at work today.
Yeah.
I find it really weird that the Game of Thrones, the House of the Dragon, and the Rings of Power are going to be on at the same time.
I mean, that's not unintentional, is it?
I would have thought they would have wanted to separate them so they don't take each other's audience.
I mean, Lord of the Rings starts like a month after, I think. It's sometime in September.
It's like 2 weeks after.
Oh, so start of September. Yeah. So I guess the idea is, depending on how good those first 2 episodes of Game of Thrones are, House of Dragons.
Yeah, but like if they're really good, then a lot of people just might not.
Do you think they'll double drop the first episode? I feel like they won't.
No. We've got it on Sky Atlantic, and they don't usually do that.
Yeah. I've got Now TV, so I think I've got
the same channel as the Lazarus Project.
Oh, so you should be able to watch it then.
Yeah.
You've not been watching it on there.
I don't have Sky Atlantic.
Oh, I thought you said we, like as in your household.
Oh, no.
Okay. No, I don't think it's on Sky Atlantic. I think Lazarus Project was just on a Sky channel.
Oh,
because Atlantic is the stuff they've bought from overseas, over the Atlantic Sea.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, they used to have Boardwalk Empire, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
something about motorbikes, according to that guy outside. Anyway, that's probably enough chat about that because I'm sure we'll be talking about it in about 2 weeks' time. Was there anything else you wanted to add on that one?
That is all of that. So we can now go into episode 4 of the Lazarus Project,
which I have dubbed George Breaks Bad.
Yes, and I actually forgot to get the IMDb rating for this in preparation. But that's fine because it literally takes me 10 seconds to get it up.
1, 2.
And do you want to guess what it is?
8.
6.8.
Wow. So this is like the worst one so far.
Well, it's better than episode 2, but worse than 1 and 3.
I think this episode is one of the better ones.
Same.
I think so. I was listening to I hadn't finished listening to our last Lazarus one. I'm very bad at listening to our own episodes now because I had to listen to like bits and pieces when I edit, but I never really listen. Anyway, that's not the point. But I'd listened to the end of that episode where we did our ratings, and we both rated that episode 8.
Did we?
Yeah. And I'm like, that's put me in a difficult position for this episode. Not that I'm
well, we get a taste of what Sam thinks.
But yeah, I think this was, pre-facing that a little bit. I do think this is one of the better episodes for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we get into it, as again, to hear the stuff more in detail, go back to episode 1, but created by Joe Barton, not Joey Barton. Starring
Joey Barton.
Joey Barton's a footballer.
Yeah, I thought
like
it was.
A knob.
Yeah.
He's now a manager.
Yeah, you take that, Joey Barton, you listener.
Yeah, he'll probably come in and beat us up.
Windows open, Joey. Come on in.
Starring Papa Rosidi, Tom Burke, Angelina Hindra, Caroline Quentin, Charlie Clive, Rudy Darmalingam, Lorne McDonald, Vinette Robinson, and Brian the Gleason.
Brian the Gleason. Because he sings all the time. He's not in this episode though, is he? He's just named in all of them now.
Yeah. So was it last week when we were discussing about what we want to go next?
Okay, my first thing is 1981, another flashback. I'm like, okay, here we go again. And I've literally written, holy shit, what the fuck? Shiv cold open. I had no idea. I felt like I'd like cheated somehow.
Yeah, because you literally said last time round, I want the next episode to start with like a Shiv cold open about him growing up and him using his powers.
Yeah.
But they don't really do cold opens, so you probably won't see it. When it came out in 1981, I was like, oh my God, we're getting a Shiv cold open.
I didn't realise until we saw like the family and I was like, oh my God, okay. Because she goes, so we see Shiv's mum like tucking in one kid, or is it tucking in Shiv and then coming back to him? Maybe.
Yeah.
Come back to him, and he was like, he's like 6 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he's like out of the crib and he's like walking around and he's like babbling away. Yeah. And they're like, what the fuck? Like, you shouldn't know how to do this. It's like he's progressed 6 months, she says.
And she literally says like he couldn't walk and talk yesterday.
Yeah.
But obviously he's had 6 months of development.
Which is crazy. I mean, brain-wise, that makes sense. Maybe he wouldn't have the muscles to stand up, but I guess it's not really that kind of...
Yeah, no.
And just a bit of a bloody killjoy.
Knowing how to do it.
I'm a bloody Shiv over here, aren't I?
Yeah. But yeah, and also he probably wouldn't have realised that he'd gone back in time 6 months.
Yeah, so he just tries to get up and then he just does kind of thing. Yeah.
But we fast forward 6 years to 1987.
Yeah, and he's like theorising, and it goes through his kind of list, and he's written things like it's the same time each year, but not every year. He's like, have I got superpowers? Am I controlling it? Who's controlling it? I think he says, can I use it or something like that?
And we keep seeing like the end of the world, like a little montage of the end of the world.
And that's the thing, like we're led to believe when we first meet him that he's seen all this horrible shit. But in this opening, he doesn't really have that bad. It's a bit stressful the first few times.
Yeah.
And he has some pretty horrible stuff happen in the next bit. But I think he's just been embittered by the Rebrov stuff more than anything.
Yeah, definitely.
And he's like, it is interesting because we're constantly being told things by characters and then seeing what actually happens.
Yeah, which is an interesting like way to do
it is, because also a lot of what we know, none of the other characters know apart from the person it happened to, which I guess is the reality of things, isn't it? People know things that that no one else knows. But
then we go forward again to 1994.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need to use my power.
Yeah.
And he goes to his uncle's shop.
Yeah, and his cousin's there, and they're like, he says something like, "Oh, can I take this sweet?" And he's like, "We can't afford that."
Yeah, they've been having money problems, and they got like attacked by some fascist dickheads.
Yeah, it's like racist graffiti is sprayed on the outside. Skinheads, the one of them mentions.
Yeah, so what he decides to do is look up like the big winners of horse racing.
I think it's like from July, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if it resets that,
so he's figured out it's the 1st of July every time.
Yeah.
So you remember, and he has these like 6 horses that he's like cut out.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool.
And he sits there and like rehearses, and you see him like walking through school, just saying these names over and over and over, because he must have figured out that like they won't be there when he goes back.
That's it. Yeah, and I was thinking like it could be different because we've seen things like conception works different and stuff, but that's more of a lottery random chance thing, whereas this is more of a set thing.
It's so minor.
Yeah,
and like horse race is not going to be changed by like a nuclear power.
Yeah, I mean, one of them could like get hit by a car one day or something, and it could change it in that way. But otherwise, if they were going to win anyway and nothing's changing that, they'll still win, kind of thing. Yeah. And
but we see a missile strike.
That's right, yeah.
And then he kind of wakes up. It comes up checkpoint day.
Yeah, which is interesting. I guess that's for people who haven't watched the other episodes, because we know it's 1st of July, but it doesn't really matter.
But it might be that to him.
Yeah.
But he turns around to his bed and the horses aren't there. So he's like, right, I'm ready.
Yeah. And he goes to the guy and he's like, oh, I want to bet. He only bets £5, which in 1994 is still like a fair amount of money. Like it's more than now. It's probably like 10 quid or something like that.
Yeah, at least.
But he ends up winning like way more than double that.
Yeah, and then he uses those winnings to bet on the next one, and he keeps winning. He keeps winning.
I was thinking he probably shouldn't go back to the same guy, because we see the guy's like, I'm giving all my but it doesn't come back to him in that way.
But he goes, he's planning on using that money to help out his uncle. Money problems, and he goes to like his uncle's shop, and you see him pull out this huge wad of cash.
Yeah,
that must be like thousands and thousands.
Yeah.
And just when he gets to his uncle, he like turns to the left and sees like a games console.
I think it's SNES, Super Nintendo. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and he's like, and he goes.
It was like 129 quid. It
said.
And he buys it.
And we see a flashback in his room, and his room's just like full of like cool stuff, like shoes,
loads of trainers and stuff, isn't it?
And he's like, oh, I guess I'll give them some. And he's got like one note left in his house.
It was like £5 or something like that.
Shiv, you bellend.
And he says something like, "Oh, it's better than nothing," kind of thing. Or maybe it's like 50 quid or something. I don't know.
But it gets to like the 3rd of September, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And
he goes down to give the money to his uncle.
Yeah, and the shop's on fire.
Yeah.
And his dad's there like, oh, shit.
I think he thought he might have been in there because he didn't know. And he's like hugging him and he's like, oh, it was the fascists.
Yeah, they think they're like, oh, the fascists burned down, which makes sense because, you know, they've been
getting all the, And then we don't see why there's another reset, but shortly after there is a reset.
Yeah.
Maybe even like almost immediately after.
I guess not everything affects him, or like immediately, so it's just reset without him.
Yeah. Or there was, there might have been like a thing going on that they didn't know about.
Maybe Russia bombed China.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then he runs down and sees his cousin. He's like, "Oh, I'm so happy to see you." And then he's like, "Oh, I'm just getting milk," because his cousin's like, "Why have you been so weird?"
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, fair enough. And then he gets to September again, and he's like waiting on his bed, all ready, and then goes down to the shop and sees like lights on in there.
Yeah, there's like torches shining around, and I think the front door must be open, or he's got a key. Probably.
Yeah, and I think he just pushes it open and goes in, and it's his cousin like pouring petrol.
Yeah.
On the floor, He's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, and he explains like, "Oh, it's for insurance. Like, I'm trying to save the business."
And he's like, and people just blame the National Front.
Yeah, and he goes like, "Oh, I'll be able to get them out because they live above the shop." His
Yeah.
family. He's like, "I'll be able to get them out." And Shiv's like, "There's like magazines there, and there's loads of alcohol there. Like,
Yeah.
it will take like 10 seconds to go up." And he's like, "Oh, sorry, Shiv." Like, he's just like a dumbass.
And then we hear sirens. He's like, "Did you call the police?" He's like, "No."
But he did, right?
Yeah,
I guess
probably.
before he went, which is a really smart move. He went in. I was like, "Why the fuck is he go? Does he have like a bat or something?" I think he might have
anything.
maybe. Yeah, I think he might have like a
But
stick.
he's
or
with
something.
his dad outside, and you like the police have got his cousin.
Yeah,
and you hear his uncle be like, "No, he hasn't done anything wrong."
Yeah.
But he's been caught red-handed.
Yes. Petrol. Slightly clear.
Translucent hands.
Slightly
He's
shimmery.
become the invisible guy in the boys.
The invisible cunt.
What's his name? Translucent. I just said translucent. I forgot Translucent's name.
Oh god. Did you see that meme I sent you? I feel like I'm not going to repeat it on air, but it's Billy Butcher when he sees him is like, well, if it isn't the invisible cunt. There's a meme with that, but I feel like it's a bit explicit, so I won't.
I don't remember seeing that in Project Show.
It's I won't explain it, but it's to do with Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, anyway, he goes up to his room, Shiv, and there is a somewhat familiar person there who I think was de-aged.
Yes, she was.
Like very badly.
Yeah, she had been de-weighted as
de-weighted, de-aged, darker hair, and it's Wes.
It's Wes.
What's she called? I was going to say Caroline Lucas, but that's not.
No. Oh, you want her the actress name? Caroline Quinton.
That's close then. And she's like, "Shiv, you're special. We've been keeping an eye on you. All those bets you made that one time."
She's like, "You're doing good."
So I guess he did the bets again this timeline.
Oh, she just noticed.
But just some
habits.
Yeah, I guess they've got their own George in this time, just like doing algorithm shit.
But she's like, "You work for me now,"
and he's like, "No."
Like if I was like a teenager and went back and there was just a strange woman in my bedroom being like, "You work for me now," I'd freak the fuck out. I'd be like,
"Mom," and she's like, "No, it's Mom."
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Mom.
Yeah. And then we go back to present day.
Yes, and we are with Rebrov, and Shiv is questioning him about. So last time round,
you didn't ask me, did you?
Oh shit! It's never too late.
Last episode, we spent a lot of time in the year 2017. We found out that Rebrov's first name is Dennis. I think we knew that already. He was in a relationship with another agent called Janet. They decided against everyone's recommendations to have the baby that was born actually just before the checkpoint. Things went bad. They ended up losing the baby because it got turned back. Then they had another baby, and she had that baby about 10 times because of the mission from episode 2 in 2018. And Rebrov lost it, shot someone, and went rogue. Janet had to go into hiding. In the present day, George teams up with Rebrov, goes to see Janet, gets a detonator, finds out about all of this, and then comes back to England with the detonator.
Yeah. It does. I think it works to do the previously on after the cold open. So I did that intentionally.
It's purpose. It's purpose.
It's purpose. It's purpose. So yeah, the question because when they went to the Lost Glory.
Yes, the paintball place.
Yeah, there's lots of maps up on the wall.
Yeah, it was like 4 or 5 maps. I think 4. They were like sections of maps drawn on whiteboards.
And they look like contour lines.
Contour lines, that's what they're called. Yeah.
Yes, they're questioning. Oh, sorry. They're questioning.
Get another soother in there, go on.
Oh no. They're questioning Rebrov about the maps. They're like, "What do they mean?" And Rebrov's like, "I don't know." And he's like, "I'm not going to tell you where the bomb is, obviously."
He's like, "You're looking for Big Boy, aren't you?" And he's like, "I've got a bloody big boy right here, Dennis."
I don't think that's a line in this.
You must be not paying attention. I've actually come around on the writing. That was my favourite line.
Okay, Romulus. You can tell I've just finished listening to the Romulus
I haven't
episode.
listened to it yet.
It's good fun.
Good. Everyone, if you haven't listened to it, go back. Previous episode. Oh my god, I've got a letter to read out at the end. I just realised.
Okay.
Thanks for reminding me.
So they're all kind of the Lazarus people at their tappy laptop, trying to figure out
Tappy.
what the maps correlate to, and they're like, they don't correlate to anything. There's no like mountain range. There's no land anywhere that looks like this. We're not sure they're a real place. And Archie's like, they've got to be a code or something like that.
Yeah.
But he can't figure it out. And then we get George chatting to Shiv, and they have a bit of an argument about like torture and stuff.
Yeah, because we found out in, I think, the episode before
last said to George that they torture him.
Yeah.
They torture people in general. Shiv does torture.
Shiv does torture because, and we kind of find out in this why he does it.
Yeah.
But he's the one who kind of leans into that more than others, it seems.
Yeah, but Shiv
Although
says,
we find out Archie did a bit as well.
Yeah. Shiv said he's not torturing Rebrov. And George doesn't approve of the torture, but like Shiv's like, sometimes we need to be 100% sure. We're still paying for shitty intel that we got before. And we have a quick flashback of him shooting the wrong guy, setting Rebrov down that path he's on now.
And the thing is, George doesn't know that. So it doesn't mean what, like, Shiv's not making a point that he thinks he's making, unless they've had a conversation off screen, but I don't think that's the case. But George also let slip. He says, oh, when I went to see him, he had a black eye. And then Shiv's like immediately like, why did you go see him?
Yeah.
And it's really, I really liked it from this point on, because we warm to Shiv as we go, and he's like fucking like he's like the best spy out of all of them. Like we see this, like there's some genuinely cool moments.
What we get here is a really good bit. So at the last episode, we saw Rebrov escape from the Lazarus and Shiv go after him, but we didn't see what happened next.
And we kind of assumed that he lost, you're to assume he lost him, and Rebrov goes off, and then it's like they never saw each other again.
But now we see what does happen next. Shiv is like driving like a maniac, keeping pace with Rebrov.
Even though he had like a fair head start, didn't he?
Yeah.
But we said last time, Rebrov's in like a saloon estate car, whereas Shiv's in.
Car isn't
it's not a better car, but it's like
a Peugeot
maybe a
or
bit more maneuverable, maybe.
But he kind of crashed into the back of Rebrov and then like spins him out.
Yeah.
And this bit was quite like emotional. That face, because obviously they've been like friends, and Shiv feels so guilty and responsible for what they went through last episode.
But I think because of all the repeats, Rebrov's kind of just like done with it all, isn't he?
Yeah.
Whereas Shiv, everyone else was kind of like unaware of what they were going through in a way.
Yeah.
Because they kind of they lock them out of it intentionally for their benefit, but it's actually made it so much worse.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
But they get out their cars and they're aiming their guns at each other.
Yeah.
And like Rebrov's like, have you ever thought that like maybe we're not the good guys?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, I have thought about it. We're the fucking good guys.
Yeah, this bit was kind of good because it was kind of funny, and some of it wasn't meant to be funny, I don't think, but like, it kind of ends really dramatically, doesn't it?
Yeah, Rebrov's like, this is all your fault, and he like puts his gun on top of his car and just kind of turns and walks away.
He says, all you had to do was shoot the right man, and then as he's walking away,
we see Shiv pull the trigger,
shoot the right man, effectively. And then I think he's like Dennis.
Yeah, and then we get quite a funny like cut. And Shiv's in the car, and the phone rings, and he answers it, and it's like,
it's Janet.
Hi, Janet. It's Shiv. Yeah, he's in the back, and you see really grumpy Rebrov in the back, and he's been shot in the leg,
which is like,
and it's like oh, good shot, Shiv.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm driving him to the hospital.
Yeah. I wrote that it wasn't quite as dramatic as we thought it was, but it's nice to get that extra depth to it in a lot of ways.
And like, it makes sense Shiv as a character not wanting to kill Rebrov there.
Yeah.
Just kind
because
of,
he had the chance, and that's the worst thing as well. Because he now knows that he had the chance to kill him, so it's extra.
But
guilt on
he's
him.
still like, I want to get Rebrov and Janet back into Lazarus and like sit and talk this out.
Because the last thing, because Rebrov Dennis was like, Janet, you need to like pack up and leave because they're gonna come for you too. Whereas Shiv's like to both of them, like, you can come back in, like, it's fine, kind of thing.
So
just
Shiv tells Janet, we're taking Rebrov to the hospital. I'll come pick you up in an hour.
Yeah.
And that at the hospital, Rebrov's looking all sad.
Yeah.
And Shiv has like a police guard.
Yeah, but he's like talking on the phone to like headquarters, like outside the door, so Rebrov can hear everything he's saying.
Yeah.
And we see his ears like prick up as he overhears. He says like, I've got one guard on him. We're gonna like move him tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah.
And Rebrov's like, ooh.
And then Shiv gets to Janet's house.
Yeah.
And like, it's very good. It's one of those classic, you can tell she left in a hurry because like there's still food on the side and she's halfway through cutting the pepper and all that.
She finished cutting it in the other episode, didn't she?
Yeah, in Romania?
Barcelona, that was.
Barcelona. Yeah. But Archie then calls Shiv.
Yeah.
And it's like, Rebrov broke the police woman's neck.
Yeah.
And ran.
And Janet's gone as well,
and
yeah.
Just like, yeah.
And Shiv's just like, shit.
Yeah, because it's like, fuck, I had like both of them essentially.
Yeah.
And gave them too much credit.
I realised at this point as well that this is going to be like as much a Shiv episode as anything else. Which is funny, is because we said that last episode. We're like, oh, it'd be good to have a Shiv episode. Yeah. It's like, yeah, we got it.
So we get back to present day, and it's George, our protagonist.
Yes.
Looking at the maps.
Yeah.
Trying to figure it out. And then Archie's like, hey, you want a pint? And he's like, no, I don't really feel like it. And she's like, I'm your boss. Let's go for a pint. And they go to the pub, and Archie literally sits down with a pint.
Yeah. I think he buys the pints, I think. Or she buys. And he has like one sip, and then he starts having a go at her about torture.
Yeah. And then it turns out like she hit Rebrov. She gave him the black eye. She's like, there's a nuke out there. Like, hitting one guy isn't as important as stopping this nuke. That's
it, yeah. Because so Shiv wasn't lying about torturing him. He's tortured people, but he hadn't tortured him.
And George is like, this is all bullshit. Like,
what's
wrong with you people?
She says something like, "Oh, we're like a black ops wet work, bloody blah blah. What did you think when you got in?" And he's like, "We didn't really tell me. Like, I just got recruited in a hurry." Yeah. And it's like, that's a fair point. Like, he didn't really get told. He didn't even know, as I keep saying, he didn't even know he was a field agent until halfway through the first episode.
Yeah,
like they clearly kind of press ganged him into it a little bit.
Yeah,
and then he says like, he's like lists all the things. He's like, "Oh, razor blades, blah blah blah. What, you're gonna cut his fucking balls off?" And she's like, "I'll cut your fucking balls off." And I was like, this is funny.
And then she leaves, and George has the first sip of his pint.
Yeah, she's like, "Thanks for the pint, George." And I'm like, wow, he's got 2 pints now. Who's the real winner in that situation?
Just finish your pint at least. Come on.
Down it.
Yeah, she could probably down a pint.
Oh, she could definitely down a pint.
But we're then at
George's flat. George and Sarah's flat.
That's what I said.
And he is on the phone to someone who we assume is to be Sarah's dad.
And it is. You see,
does it say Sarah's?
On his phone, Ian brackets Sarah's dad.
Okay, well, I didn't see that because he's also got on his screen all the maps. And Sarah's dad is like, "Oh, we're gonna like, what are you doing about the funeral?" And he's like, absentmindedly like, "Oh, I'll sort it out," whilst like scrolling through the maps.
Also like, she's my wife, and he's like, no,
which is
that's a different reality.
That's it.
But Ian's like,
it's fine.
Yeah, no, like we understand.
But he's like, "We'll sort it out." But George is just like, "No, it's fine." And what I thought was really interesting is it's what we talked about before, and they come back to it in this episode. He's like shirking his real life responsibilities, because he's chasing this fantasy that's a possibility
to sort out his real life.
But the thing is, if it gets to the 1st of July and he's like, he might have fucked up his life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very real. Like, it could well go that way.
Yeah, we don't know. It's still July, we think, don't we? Do you think Sarah got hit?
It could be.
August.
Could be August by now, but it's not been that long. I mean, if the funeral's being planned, it's within weeks, you'd imagine. Yeah.
But he's got some sort of technology, and with these contour lines, he's like, what is the peak height of all these hills?
Yeah.
And then puts them in a sequence and figures out it's an IP address because he's good with tech and stuff.
Yeah. I feel like also that's not that techie.
I was thinking, how has nobody figured this out yet?
Yeah, because if you saw contour lines, you'd think about the numbers behind those.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be that hard to work out because it's also with the distances between each line.
Exactly.
And if you know the scale of the map, it's like, it's not that.
Also, no way. Like the first one's 254 meters high. No fucking way with those contour lines. There's like 5 circles.
Yeah.
That's not 254 meters.
But it's to do with
high.
how close they are together.
They're pretty spread out.
Yeah. I mean, I assume they would have got somebody to check them.
They're really not.
Yeah.
I think they've just. Yeah.
They're just done random circles.
Yeah.
And stuff. But anyway, it's a sequence of numbers and it goes into what you said, IP address. And then he goes in the IP address and it comes up just immediately with the location in Romania.
Yeah.
I guess that's what the IP address is, isn't it? Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So he starts going to buy a flight ticket.
Again, like we don't. Spoilers for this. He doesn't get to that location in this episode. He gets pretty near it.
Yeah.
But is it like a base and it's going to have loads of guys with guns? Or is it just like a warehouse with I guess it's going to be guarded, isn't it?
Yeah, but he can just be like, hey, I know Red Rob.
Because, so the idea
plans afoot.
He doesn't really go through it in this too much. I think we skipped a bit where he talks to Rebrov right at the start. And he's like, where's Lost Glory or whatever?
Yeah.
And he's like, I genuinely don't know, sorry. And I think the idea is that he needs to check if the bomb is there.
I think he wants to get the bomb to a good place.
Or maybe he wants to give them the detonator so that they can do it themselves. Either way, we never really... But we know, as we spoke about last episode, if he just blows it up now, first of all, it might not have the impact it needed, and he's done it for nothing. It's like he needs to know that it's going to do something.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
So he's going to buy a flight to
Romania,
and then he stops himself, and he's like, wait a second. And he goes through his drawer and finds Sarah's purse.
Yeah.
And her bank card that is inexplicably not cancelled yet.
Also, what did he do when he went to Barcelona last episode?
Yeah.
It's a bit weird they didn't check it out then.
But anyway, he buys
the tickets to Barcelona to Romania. Then he calls in sick to Shiv, who's already suspicious of him.
Well, no, he calls Archie, but Shiv answers because he sees the phone ringing on her desk.
Right,
sees that it's George.
Okay.
He's like, oh, he doesn't even put on a cough or anything.
I think he says like it must have been something I ate or something. I think he
says.
Says,
I'm gonna take a couple of days off, and Shiv is like, "Are you fucked?" Like,
yeah, you can see Shiv just sees straight through it. He knows exactly what's going on.
He goes up to Ryan.
Is he called Ryan?
He's called Ryan.
So this is a guy who's like an IT tech guy who we have maybe seen in passing, but we've never spent any time with.
Goes up to him.
Yeah,
and he's like, I need you to get me some bank details and be hush about it.
And he's like, have you got the paperwork, like the permits or warrants?
Yeah, and he's like, nope, this is time sensitive.
And doesn't he say like, we can get them retroactively, but it could cause legal problems or something?
Yeah.
And he's like, shut up, basically.
But he's like, I wanted to get into George's account. And
I think he says like agent so-and-so, and he's like, George? And he's like, yes.
Yeah, because we find out that George has got like a non-English surname. And I was kind of like, oh, that's the first time we've heard of this surname.
Yeah, I didn't actually see it on the thing, but
yeah, because we haven't heard. He's just been George the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense. His parents might have been first generation.
Yeah, that's what I kind of assume. And even like the credits just say George.
Yeah. I mean, we don't really have surnames for most people. I'm sure you can find them out. Okay, yeah. And Mom is Wes something probably.
Yeah, but it's just Archie and Shiv and Ryan.
Sarah we get from the credit card, but again I don't remember what that is. It was like
Lee.
I was gonna say Lionel.
Lee.
Yeah, and then he's like, oh, okay, there's nothing suspicious there. And Shiv just starts to walk away from the desk, and he's like, hang on, my spy senses are tingling. And he's like,
the rest of this episode, his spy senses are constantly tingling.
Oh my god,
I love it.
My next thing is spy versus spy because it's fucking great. But yeah, he's like, hang on, he's got a partner, Sarah, don't know her surname, but blah blah blah, all this stuff that he knows about her.
Yeah.
And he's like, send them to me. And he's like, you sure? And he's like, yeah. And then he goes and sits down, and then Archie comes and is like, what are you looking at or something? Oh no, he gets an email from Ryan with the records, and the top thing is like flight to Bucharest.
Yeah.
And he's like
within the days, so he knows it's not Sarah.
Yeah, and Archie's like, what are you looking at? And he's like, oh, just boring stuff, don't worry. And she's like, okay.
And he's like, I'm heading out, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
But right, so from here on out, Shiv is a great spy.
I didn't realise he was so close behind him.
But also, George is a fucking idiot.
Yeah, George. Well, I mean, to be fair, like the money trail thing is like
stupid.
That, but you wouldn't have thought. I mean, he should have got cash out. Really,
should have got cash out
on the buffet cart. It's so funny. Anyway, we'll go through it. But basically, what happens from here on out, in case it gets kind of lost in the momentum, is the IT guy Ryan is giving Shiv updates on all the purchases
that George is doing,
and Shiv is using his spy descents to track him, and to the point where he's like right on the thing behind him.
Yeah.
And it starts at like he knows which flight he's getting, so he's on the same flight. No, the flight after him.
Flight after. But George has bought a train ticket at Bucharest station.
Yeah.
For £57. It's not pounds.
Yeah, it's like P. It must be.
So Shivers says to Ryan, like, right, where could it be going that costs £57?
And there's like 5 options or something, and it's like one's not working, so it's 4 or something like that. You know, like whittling it down.
And then
there's another way that he whittles it down, but on the way he's getting to the station, and does he see him get on the train?
No, I think he sees a train just leaving,
and he assumes it's that one because of the timings of it. Yeah,
and he quickly asks Ryan for the options.
Yeah.
And George is just like, as he's running to get on the train, there's just a guy selling drinks. He's just tapping his contact list, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake,
Oh, is
George.
that how he figures out going to that way, maybe?
Yeah, that's how he knows to go to that platform.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think the guy's ATM, the ping thing would be like, oh, it's on platform 2 at the moment. And then the guy, Ryan, is like, oh, it's got to be this one, but one's cancelled and you can get a taxi there and you'll get quicker.
Yes, he's going to Brasov.
Right.
But the station's closed. So he's having to change somewhere else and get a second train to Brasov.
So he can catch up with him, right? But they say he get a taxi, but I think Shiv just carjacks someone because he turns up just in a car later.
Yeah, well, Ryan's just an innocent man.
He is. Totally. And there's a funny bit where George is waiting for the connection and he goes on his phone and he's like bored. And then Ryan calls Shiv in the car and he's like, he's just spent $10 on a 10 golden gemstone upgrade.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, George. Like, you can't be this stupid. Firstly, for spending money on a mobile game.
Also, he needs to first of all that. But also, maybe he shouldn't have brought his real phone. Like, they probably could have just tracked his. But I guess that uses more technology.
Put Sarah's card details into his phone, so when he buys stuff on a game, it comes up from.
I think he's so stupid that he bought the plane tickets on hers and then was spending money in Romania on his card. Like, I genuinely think it's that stupid.
But anyway, he gets on the train just as Shiv arrives in the car. And she like runs up and jumps on the side of the car and train car and gets in, and they're on the same train, and we're like, ooh,
yeah, it's great because it's got like the dining cart and like the carrot, like the bits.
It's one of the classic where it's just got like a thin corridor down one
side,
like
Murder on the Orient Express kind of one, and it's kind of like you almost feel like George knows someone's after him, but I think he's just kind of clueless.
Yeah,
well, ish, because he goes up to the dining cart and he buys something, and then
and Ryan's like, "Yep, he's at the buffet cart."
He's at the buffet cart, and then Shiv goes back round, and then he must know that he's being followed at this point.
I think when Shiv goes into that room, George is looking behind and sees him, and then it's like, "Oh shit!"
Because he again gets the upper hand on him,
He
doesn't
then hides into a little room, and as Shiv's walking past, George grabs him,
He proper knocks him out though.
knocks him out, and steals his gun.
Takes his gun, yeah. And then he stops the train and he just runs out into a field. Oh, he takes his little detonator bum bag out of his big bag.
Yeah, it's funny because he tries to open the door and it's locked, and he's like, "Oh no!" and then has to smash the window.
Yeah.
And yeah, he literally just runs through a field, and Shiv comes to and sees him.
Well, he kind of slows down in the field, doesn't he? He turns around and then sees Shiv just like the Terminator coming after him. And he's like, fuck. And he's running, then he ends up in like a village market thing.
Yeah.
And there's lots of like it reminded me of the opening of Casino Royale a little bit.
Yeah, well, he's just like running through people.
Just like different bit. He goes into like a house and he gets to a room and he's like, oh no, and there's one wall that moves a bit. And he like crashes through, and then he's in like a weed room.
Yeah, there's two guys who are sitting there who look at him, and then they just sit back and smoke.
Keep smoking.
And Shiv's following. He's going.
He's
in
like
this house,
a minute
following,
behind
like,
him or whatever. Yeah.
And
when George tries to climb out the window, all cool, and he grabs the drain pipe, and then the drain just collapses, and he falls onto a van.
Yeah, and then rolls the foot. He's just like, ooh. But as he gets away from there, Shiv sees him.
Yeah. So he almost runs back out the village, doesn't he, the other side?
So then George sees some guy working on a motorbike, runs over, jumps on the motorbike.
Yeah.
And Shiv comes out, and some guy goes up to Shiv and goes, "He just stole my motorbike," or something in Romanian.
Yeah.
As if he knows that Shiv and George know each other.
Yeah.
Is it because they're the only two non-white people
I was
going to
say, I feel like they might have had some issues, the two brown guys in the village.
But Shiv's like, okay, and steals that guy.
I think he like punches him in the face.
And then we've got like a chase.
Yeah,
it's like,
this is great. It's so good.
So George on a motorbike and Shiv following in a car.
And it's cool because Shiv is obviously the better driver, as we saw earlier on. And he's like really, like, it's like a rally thing where he's doing the corners right, whereas George is a bit more nimble, but doesn't really seem to know what he's doing.
And
kind
then
of thing.
eventually he goes on a sharp corner too tightly.
I think there's like bollards as well, and he has to kind of turn.
I think he just turns around the corner.
Right,
As you do on a motorbike, you lean. He just leans
He just
too
falls
much.
off it, yeah.
And
Shiv's just plowing towards him.
And he plows into the motorbike, so George can't then get away again.
Yeah, yeah.
And
then it's very, very mirroring the situation earlier, isn't it?
And Shiv gets out, and George's just like, "Oh, hey, what's up, man?"
Yeah, like it's like as if he didn't know who was chasing him.
Yeah, and Shiv's like, "I know you figured out where Big Boy is, the bomb.
Yes.
Don't go down this path." And
Yeah.
George is like, "Look at me, I'm already down the path."
And there's like thunder in the background. It's
Yeah.
very. They're just in like the Romanian countryside, and
Shiv
Shiv's like,
it tries to explain, like, if you can bring back Sarah, but like tens of thousands of people might die as a result.
Yeah. And he's like, also, it's not too late. Like, come back with me now. It's kind of like the same talk he was giving Rebrov.
He even says
earlier.
like, "You're not like Rebrov."
Yeah.
And then bam.
He pulls the gun. George pulls the gun. Shiv has never had a gun. He had the one gun that was taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, bam, straight in the chest. Shiv's down.
Shiv's down, and he's like holding himself. And George's like, "Does anyone else know?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh fuck, this is literally I've knocked Mace Window out the window."
Yeah.
Moment for George.
George is broken bad. I told you. Yeah, and then he's like, no one else knows. And he's like,
"I'm gonna bring her back. Don't worry, I'm gonna bring you back too."
yeah, and he's like, the first thing I'll do is come for you. And he's like, I know. And then he just shoots him again in the chest.
I thought we shot him in the head the second time.
I don't know. Yeah, 2 chest shots or a headshot.
But it's kind of like, from George's perception, it doesn't really matter who he kills because he's planning on
the issue is,
setting it off anyway.
what will happen is if he brings Sarah back, Sarah will have the life, but he'll be fucked.
Yeah.
And I guess he's just like accepted that now. But it's sad because he won't get to enjoy his life with her.
Yeah. What have I done?
Unless he goes around and kills all the Lazarus members and then resets it.
Yeah.
Can you fucking imagine if that's where it ends? Like season? Because did we hear there was a season 2? I think there was talks of season 2 in one of the articles we read.
Oh, maybe.
If they do a season 2, they could do like George is just like full Heisenberg.
Yeah.
He's just trying to kill him.
Rebrov.
He's like, what is it? Where someone's trying to like kill all the old like members or whatever, like almost like
Kylo Ren.
Yeah, almost like that. He's going around to kill them all and then reset one last time to just have a normal life with Sarah. Yeah. But yeah.
But he goes to the car because he's going to put Shiv in the boot.
Yes, and his
then
phone
Shiv's
goes,
phone goes off,
it?
and he realizes that he's been messaging Brian.
Yeah.
And this bit, I thought, fuck.
Yeah.
George is so much smarter than I thought he was.
Yeah.
I was like, he's been a fucking moron for the last week. But this bit is a stroke of genius.
Yeah.
So he messages Ryan, pretending to be Shiv, being like, hey, I've got a top secret favor to ask.
Yeah, and this poor Ryan, the most naive man in the whole of Lazarus.
We see him walk down. And
you know, he was probably going out with that poor girl who got shot last episode.
Yeah. He walks down past security guards being like, oh, I've just gone to see the prisoner. And he goes in and he's like, oh, I've got a message for the prisoner.
Yeah.
And then he goes in and says to Rebrov, big plans are afoot.
And we know from last episode
that's what George would have said to Janet if Janet was going to kill him.
Yes.
But
so that's a kill me.
But also, Rebrov doesn't know that George knows that phrase.
No.
So to Rebrov, Janet is the only person that knows that phrase.
Yes. So effectively, Janet sent that person
to get killed.
To get killed
and
as a way of bringing him out.
Puts his hand to his ear. And the next thing we know is the guard rushing in as Rebrov strangling Ryan.
Oh, because he says, come here. And then he's like, oh, I can't hear you. Come closer. And he must get him to come to the food hatch somehow. Yeah. And then he's like, breaks his neck at the food hatch.
And it's like, and then like Rebrov just stands up because he's like, I had to kill him. And it's just like, George has literally just fucking used Rebrov.
Yeah, as
to
like
kill just this
the loose end that was there.
Like,
yeah,
fuck, George is like worse than Rebrov.
The thing is, it is proper Heisenberg shit, right? Like he's a smart guy. The thing is, though, there are other loose ends of the text. I assume they'll just brush over it, but it would be interesting if it comes to light, like, oh, we should look into Ryan's phone, like see if and then they're like, oh shit,
but
Shiv was,
George...
but it still doesn't tie him to George at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact there's little crumbs left reminds me of stuff like Breaking Bad, like the WW in the book and stuff like that. Yeah. These little clues that like sit there for a while.
Yeah.
God, I want to watch Breaking Bad.
I've literally just written here, damn, George is going bad. So,
so close.
But fuck. Yeah. That ending, I was just like, shit, because we've seen Shiv the whole episode and then he gets killed at the end.
I wrote here, but no wonder it was a Shiv episode.
It wasn't a shit episode.
No.
But yeah, like obviously he'll probably come back.
Yeah, I wonder how quickly. It would be really interesting if he blows it up and resets it within the next episode or two, so that we have a little bit of time to do the repercussions.
Yeah.
Because if, say, they are doing a season 2, I vaguely remember something mentioning it. It might have been on the cards, and I obviously don't want to look it up. But I really don't want them to save the reset for season 2, because then we'd have to wait longer to find out what happens.
Yeah, no, I think they'll do it all in one.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'm just hoping they don't just leave it right at the end.
That's what I mean. Yeah. I think if they'll definitely do it this season, but whether they do it with enough time to see the consequences of it or not is another thing.
I would really like it if just like George is the villain from here on out.
I mean, it sure seems like it is, because we spent so much time with Shiv this episode. It was 50-50 with the and Shiv is more posed to be the bad guy in lots of ways,
because he's like the miserable
guy.
He's
torturing, he's pursuing the guy who's doing it for love and that, but the way it's, in practice, it's like is very much the opposite way.
The torture thing kind of reminds me of Lost, where one of the characters, Saeed, is a former Iraqi torturer who tortured like American soldiers. Who then kind of has the whole, they tried to make him talk, and he tortured somebody on the island to try and get information, but he's one of them. But he kind of has a whole arc where like, he's actually a really nice guy. And he ends up having a relationship with this blonde Australian woman, and he turns out to be like one of my favorite characters. But he is like, he's an Iraqi torturer.
And there's another one for the Project Bingo if you need that. Lewis talks about Lost.
Oh yeah. But yeah, overall, I thought that was a banging episode.
I thought it was really good, and this is why I was kind of annoyed that I gave the last one an 8, because I think I enjoyed this one more in different ways. I think this was more what I was expecting from this series, like medium budget action, like espionage, like the spy stuff. Like not watched. I haven't seen the newest James Bond. I haven't seen the last few Mission Impossibles. Like this really like scratched that itch of like spy stuff for me.
The Shiv hunting down George,
and it was really like creative. The whole like, doing it with the money thing and everything.
And it's like half the episode.
It really was.
Like Archie, Wes, Rebrov don't get much play.
No, it is.
We haven't seen the Danish man in a couple episodes.
It's slightly more Shiv in this episode, but probably like 60-40 Shiv George.
Yeah, which is really good when it's just like one man hunting another.
It is spy versus spy. It was fantastic. Yeah, it was really really cool. And it really this show is like is genuinely quite good.
Yeah, I'm really good.
I'm really glad that we're watching it, because we could be watching a bunch of shit, and it's even if it ends kind of badly, you know, we've
enjoyed the ride.
Every episode's been good. Not every episode's been great, I would say.
The second episode was a bit poor.
Yeah.
But it was there to set up the third episode.
That's right.
The third episode was really good, and this episode was really good.
I think the last two episodes have been really good.
Yeah.
And the first episode was pretty good. Yeah, and you're right. But overall, I don't really know how to rate it, because I think I've got to rate it an 8 out of 10, really.
I was also going to give it an 8, but like one 8 can be better than another 8. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think it was better than the other one in different ways, but the other one was slightly cleverer in that it played on the previous episode.
And it was more emotional.
Yes,
whereas this one goes down the whole cool. This was
was cool. It was slightly kind of cerebral in like, you know, them being clever with each other. And
I like as well though, like talking about the spy, how it does show that George is just some guy off the street, and Shiv has been doing this for years.
Yes, yeah. I mean, effectively, he may well have been doing it since, what was it, 1994?
Yeah.
So he's had a good.
It kind of implied that he has been doing it.
How old is he?
That's a good point. He must be like 40. Because he was born in 1981. So he's over 40.
Yeah, he's just over 40. He looks really good. He looks like he's like 35.
Well,
I guess that's not that.
30, you could get away.
Yeah, to be fair, he looks like he could be our age, doesn't he? Which is not 30.
And it's not 40.
It's definitely not 40.
But yeah.
Not far off 40 though, are we, Lewis?
Maybe some of us are a year older than the other, so
39 and 40.
I'm give it an 8.
8 out of 10, yeah, 8 all round.
So I really look forward to the next episode. I was thinking like we'll carry on doing every other week, but I think for the last 2 episodes we might have to do it back to back.
If it's like, you know,
so do something else next week. Episode 6, something else, and then 7, 8.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
that's our next. There's on pod planning.
Bingo.
The next 5 weeks plan.
How many's in a bingo? 6, is it?
No, more. Oh, in a line, maybe.
It depends on how you're doing it, isn't it? Yeah. But nice.
That is episode 4.
Before we get into personal projects, I just remembered when we were talking about something earlier on. What were we talking about? Oh, Shadow Chaser. We got a comment on YouTube that I thought was worth reading out. It's a very small comment on our it was our Shadow Chaser 2 episode on YouTube.
Oh.
And I thought it was worth reading out, and I've replied to it. I only replied to it yesterday, and it was a week ago. So who knows if they'll come back again. But it was by somebody called Kimberly Stark. Right. And she wrote, "I had a small role in this movie, but I've never seen it." Laughing face, shrugging face.
Oh my God, what?
So Shadow Chaser 2, at this point, the best in the Shadow Chaser franchise.
It is.
Has who has 10 subscribers and joined 3 years ago, was apparently in Shadow Chaser 2.
What was her name?
Kimberly Stark.
There it is. She played Carla in Project Shadow Chaser 2.
Who was Carla?
Now I'm going to look that up. But she is listed on Wikipedia.
Yeah, interesting. So she must have just started looking it up because it's got here like Kimberly Stark, actress, casting director, producer, presenter, voiceover artist. Well, she's got a lot of stuff here, but South Africa's leading talent agency, making her. Oh, sorry. Keynote speaker is the MD, managing director of Stark Raving Management, South Africa's leading talent agency, making her one of the most experienced talent managers in South Africa.
Huh.
So she was raised in California, according to this, and she worked in San Francisco. But she moved to South Africa in 1984. So maybe, did we find out that Shadow Chaser 2 was filmed in South Africa? It may well have been.
Yeah. So I've got a picture of her here in 1994. You know what? She might have been one of the scientists that gets killed.
I don't think that's the same person here. Because I've got a picture of her from my profile picture and she doesn't look anything like that.
Well, this was 30 years ago. Okay. But again, she might have been one of the scientists.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it may well be. I mean, Carla's her character name. Kimberly, if you are listening to this, which you have no reason to because you weren't in the film we're talking about, if you happen to be listening to this, do let us know what your experiences on the film. You know, we could even try and reach out to her for a little Q&A about filming alongside the Zag man himself.
The Zagmeister.
But yeah, I thought that was worth
definitely
worth pointing out.
Always nice to see a cast member, no matter how big of a role they play.
Yeah. Carla. You're not getting anything up there then?
No, even how IMDb page hasn't got a picture. It says Carla, but
I mean, we could watch it back again. Double speed.
She's in The Revenger with Frank Zagarino.
Oh, so
she's been in multiple films.
She's coming on the Zag Project.
Oh my! She was in Cyborg Cop with John Rhys Davis.
Okay, yeah.
Gimli.
And Frank Zag's in that as well.
David Bradley's in it, but like young.
David Bradley? What the fuck?
It doesn't look like that. There must be a different David Bradley.
But Frank Zagarino's in Cyborg Cop 2 as well, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was in the same year as when I was looking it up last time.
Oh, she's been in lots of random stuff. Hopefully we get another response.
Yeah. I mean, she seems, she seems active on YouTube, so I can always reach out to her on there, see if she comes back to me. But yeah, that's the letters/comments for this week, or the interesting ones anyway. We'll give you the details for social medias, emails, etc. at the end if you want to reach out to us, especially if you have starred across the great man himself, Frank Zagarino.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So that now means it's time for
personal projects.
This looks kind of personal.
Projects.
So, Sam, what have you been watching? You've been... Oh, I've forgotten what you said.
What have you been watching?
You've been watching Prey.
I have been watching Prey. So, Prey being the new Predator installment that is a Hulu movie, but Disney Plus for the rest of the world.
Yeah, not what you do in church every Sunday.
No, it's EY rather than AY. I thought I got it wrong there.
It's like how you spell grey.
That fucking film, The Grey Man, is spelled wrong.
Because Americans
I know. I was like, why did that? Yes, I watched Prey. Yeah, so it's set in 1709 or something, and it's cool. Follows Comanche tribe. And as you'd imagine, there's a predator there, and shit goes down, and it follows I think they're called squaw, but I don't know if that is a technical term or if that is an offensive term, but there's a female Native American person.
Right.
And she ends up in a kind of battle against the predator. And it is really, really good.
Is it?
I would say it is potentially better than any Predator film.
See, I have seen all the Predator films.
Yeah.
And I don't think Well, I think there's only one good one.
Yeah, we got the
That's the
original
first one.
I mean, it's a different film.
I quite like the second 'cause it's like The Predator, but in a city.
yeah, and it's got is it Carl Weathers? No, Carl
No,
Weathers is in the
it's,
first one.
Danny
Glover.
Danny Glover.
Yeah, Carl Weathers is in the first one.
Yeah. But yeah. And then they had the two newer ones. The one with Adrian Brody on the planet, which people quite
pretty
liked,
good.
but I didn't think. With Morpheus.
Yes, Lawrence Fishburne.
Who turns up for like 2 minutes.
He turns up for 2 minutes in most films nowadays. He's like,
yeah, John Wick.
Yeah, every film 2 minutes.
And then there was the other one where the Predators wanted to steal autism from the little
That's
boy.
right. Yes, autism, the well-known superpower.
Yeah,
There's no more depth to autism. It's just the superpower.
It had a giant predator in that one.
It did. They were like, "Oh no, this predator's bigger than the other ones, and we're gonna fight it with a predator." And then at the end, the guy got like a predator suit or something,
Yeah.
and they were like, "We're definitely gonna do another." Did you know there was a couple of deleted scenes / concepts of that ending scene? So they receive like a care package from the Predators, like, here you go, this is for the sequel that's never going to happen. One of them was going to be cryopods with a slightly older Dutch who is Arnie in it.
Yes, I saw that.
And he was going to be like, I'm here, I'm going to help you in the sequel. And the other one, they were going to have Ellen Ripley from Aliens.
Well, they are in the same universe.
Yeah, they were going to have her there, and then she was going to help them. But they've kind of exhausted the legacy characters.
This was a good idea.
Yes, it's a reboot in some ways, but there are little hints to artifacts and stuff that turn up, like Easter eggs from other ones. You kind of add it up, but the action's really, really good. It's very visceral and gory, and it's well made. It's almost, you could almost watch it without the dialogue. It's very like
nice
visual, and there is a Comanche dub, so you can watch it in the original language, which wasn't originally filmed in. And there was speculation at one point when it was being filmed if it was going to be filmed in Comanche with subtitles, like, is it Apocalypto, which is all in like the original language. But it's directed by I think he's called Dan Trachtenberg, who is best known for 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yes, which is very good.
Which is also very good. It's also like a solo female character kind of sorting shit out.
His sister's famous.
Is his sister something with Trachtenberg? Michelle Trachtenberg, who
was in Buffy.
Yes, that's right.
I think that's sibling.
Yeah, I would have thought so, but I don't know any other Trachtenberg, so that's the only reason I'm saying that. But yeah, it's been well received. The Predator design.
He's not related to Michelle Trachtenberg. They both just got the same obscure surname.
The Predator design's really good as well. I won't spoil too much. They do some interesting stuff. The cloaking is done in a slightly different way. And I think what they were trying to do is like, oh, this is 300 years before the Predator we see. So maybe their technology is not quite in the same place.
That makes sense.
I saw other places people saying maybe it was a predator from a different part of the planet and stuff like that as well. But I would really, really recommend it. It's also my golden rule of thumb or whatever. It's an hour and 40 minutes, so it's perfect weekday
Under
film.
2 hours.
I've got a couple other bits, but what have you been?
So, and it's similar due to length. Me and Christina were having dinner, or about to have dinner. She wanted to have a bath and go to bed. We were like, let's find something short to watch. And I was like, oh, you know what? I've heard Fleabag is actually quite short. She was like, oh, I've been meaning to watch Fleabag. And I was like, me too.
Hey.
So we watched the first episode of Fleabag.
Yeah.
Just fun. Like, I think it'll get into it. I'll get into it a bit more when we watch more. Yeah. But I was like, I can enjoy it. Christina really enjoyed it as well.
Nice.
So I think we will go with that, and I think that'll be
good.
Coming up quite a lot on this.
Nice. Well, the whole thing, as I said, is 2 hours exactly, almost, if you watch it in one go. So you can get through the whole thing, like both seasons, incredibly quickly.
Really? Because first episode was 27 minutes.
Maybe the whole thing is 4 hours, 2 hours per season.
Right. Yeah. That makes
my maths
more
isn't
sense.
very good, but yeah, you can get through it very quickly anyway. So I can't remember how many, if it's 4 or 6 episodes, but either way.
There's a total of 12 episodes.
Okay, yeah. So it's
2 seasons.
yeah. So it's 2 hours a season then.
But yeah, that was good fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Good.
And we partly watched that because we finished Agents of Shield.
Yeah.
Finally. Last season is great fun. Very silly, but that is Shield.
Yeah, it is a bit of a mixed bag that last season, but I think it does what it was kind of intending to do.
I enjoy it for the most part, apart from the lack of fits.
Yeah, that's the main gripe
But
I
like
had.
Deeks at his best.
Yeah.
Yo-Yo's less annoying than usual.
Yeah, I was never really a fan of her.
But yeah, it was good, and it's got Enoch being Enoch.
Yeah,
so-
there's a good amount of Enoch.
Yeah, but yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that. So
Nice.
Me and Christina were joking the other day. We've got so many series we've started and not finished.
Yeah.
Still halfway through Umbrella Academy season 2.
Yeah, I haven't started 3.
Season 3.
Yeah, I haven't started 3
I'm
yet.
still halfway through season 2 of The Boys.
I realised I started Severance and have never finished that, so I need to get back to that. The Boys, yeah, I think we'll pick that up. Oh, another we finished Daredevil season 2, as I said a little while we were near the end, and against all recommendations, watched the first episode of Defenders.
I'm never gonna finish.
I was just explaining who everyone was and what their background was to Amy because we didn't watch Luke Cage or Iron Fist and only watched half of Jessica Jones.
Right.
And surprise, surprise, we were both on our phones for half of the episode.
Yeah.
So I don't think it particularly bodes well. The only thing is it does fill in what happens with Foggy, with Karen, stuff like that.
Yeah, but
enough that, you know, I think it's worth kind of skipping through or at least reading up what happens.
Yeah.
I think maybe Karen's not in it that much. I think maybe because they meet up and it's like, oh, you told me you were Daredevil and now we don't speak anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. So
yeah.
Anyway, but I also watched something that's incredibly short, which is the series of shorts on Disney Plus called I Am Groot.
Oh yeah, I saw that advertised.
Yeah, there's like 5 of them, I want to say.
Like a kid show.
It's just like a short bit, so it's like it's just a short. They're on there as 5 minutes, but they're actually like 3 minutes.
Oh wow, this is like credits
and it's literally
minutes.
it's just like a little bit of Baby Groot running around and doing stuff.
They did a load of that for Toy Story 4.
Yes, it's very similar to that, but all like pretty much dialogueless.
Right.
But they're not in any particular order because you can watch them they're just separate shorts.
But
But
other characters turn up at all.
in the final one, someone else does show up, but because you don't know the order, it's called the Magnum Opus, that one. So
Right.
if you watch that one last, it's slightly more involved than the other ones. But yeah, they're fun little they feel very Pixar-ish in that he's just going on like a fun adventure, and it
Nice.
feels like a short. They could have spread these out over the start of 5 Marvel films, and it would have been
Right.
like, oh, that's fun, but they didn't. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. I might stick that on for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and pretty
And
much
finish
watch
it.
all
How
of
many
them.
episodes of it? Just
I think like about 5, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe 6, but I feel like it's 5. But
20
yeah,
minutes. Then
watched
I'll
them
be
all
done.
in like half an hour last night.
Nice.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll
yeah.
check them out.
And actually, I think She-Hulk might be coming out this week. It may have.
I think we might have a couple of weeks. Yeah,
Maybe
so
it's the
I looked at
80.
You know, last time you said, "Oh, there's gonna be something in She-Hulk that you are gonna really like." I got a fucking notification from YouTube.
Yeah.
So I've now blocked notifications from YouTube. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're a fan of Marvel," and I was like, "Fuck off, YouTube." Like,
Yeah. I won't talk about it in case we're talking about different things, but there's a stinger in the trailer which I turned off when I saw it, and now they've released a full clip which doesn't cut off at the character's mid torso and just shows the full outfit / person.
I saw like the head, and I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
and it's something
great,
that would have
thanks."
been really nice to see, you know, halfway through that season.
Yeah,
but
fuck,
hey,
fucking see, this is why I try and go in blind.
yeah. I genuinely try, but my algorithms are so skewed on all platforms that I just
Yeah.
can't now.
I think
I
the
just
only
can't.
social media I really use these days is TikTok.
Yeah, see, I'm on Instagram all the time, and my whole page is like half Marvel stuff,
Yeah,
and Star Wars, and just just other stuff.
Yeah, all your hentai.
Yeah, don't need to talk about that on here though.
So
Yeah.
unless you have anything else, I think
No,
is the
not
show.
much. No. Yeah, I'm happy to call it a day.
Excellent. So if you enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed episode 4 of the Lazarus Project, hopefully you enjoyed it a bit more, because if you enjoyed it as much as we did, you'd give it 4 stars out of 5.
Yeah.
Hopefully you enjoyed it a bit more. You can give it 5 stars out of 5 on your podcast listening application. Or if you have some insider knowledge without giving us spoilers, want to talk about something else, or your name is Kimberly Clark, get in contact with us directly.
Who the fuck is Kimberly Clark?
Kimberly Clark is star of Project Shadow Chaser 2, where she plays Carla.
You mean, hang on, I've got the screenshot here somewhere. Kimberly Stark.
Oh, so close.
I think Kimberly Clark is someone. I'm going to look it up and hope it's not a porn star.
Well, that would be embarrassing. If you're Kimberly Stark, yes, get in contact. Or, you know...
it's a company, Kimberly Clark Manufacturing.
Okay. If you have been in any project-related stuff, it'd be great to hear from you as well.
If we've covered it, or even if we haven't, that'd be even better, because we can get some insider goss.
And then we will recognise you when we watch it.
Yeah, and we'll talk shit about you for 5 minutes.
Or we can talk about you if you're one of those dodgy CIA people who did bad stuff in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. Or even if you're doing dodgy CIA stuff now, CIA stuff now, we can be like a whistleblower podcast. We can switch lanes completely.
People will think we're like Alex Jones, though.
Did you hear about Alex Jones?
Oh,
yeah. So funny.
He's such a moron.
And he's in court and he's like, I definitely gave you all the stuff, and it's like, yeah, you gave them everything. And there was pictures of his wife naked on the phone, and now she's like trying to sue him, I think, for giving them. He also had child porn on his phone.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh god.
And like, people are like, it's funny how the people who are always so right wing anti child porn, like pedophiles should be hung, and there's like hanged, and there's nothing
projection there.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, but not that that's not bad, but people who are actively like, you should kill all pedophiles, it's like, maybe you're trying to hide something a little bit.
But moving on from all that stuff, how do you get in contact with us, Sam?
Well, you can yell at the rooftops, Alex Jones is a paedophile, and we'll come find you. Or you can send us an email at theprojectpod@gmail.com, or you can find our social medias in the link tree, which is in the episode description, or just search for us on all social medias.
Yeah, do that.
Apart from any that have Alex Jones on them exclusively.
Yes.
I'm sure he's got his own one somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
The Frogman podcast.
Podcast? For now, thank you for coming along. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Yep.
I will hear you next week.
Yeah, and I'll see you in Bucharest, baby.
Oh, hi, Shiv.
Oh, hey, man.
What's going on?
Bye.
Bye.